And so tell me a little bit about what your platform is.
Well, supply management isn't the only thing, but it's obviously a big issue, and it was important to me. And I will say, the only reason I had the opportunity to actually delve into the subject in as much depth as I did was because I was able to do that through the School of Public Policy. I'm as an executive fellow at the school at the University of Calgary. So it was a great opportunity because this is something that has been bothering me for years, and that's that in the political world, the number of politicians behind the scenes would say, well, of course we know that it's time for supply management to be dismantled, but we just don't think we have the votes for it. And as a politician, I just don't have a lot of truck with that. You know, if you know that something needs to be done, then we should stand up and do it. And with supply management, it was brought in, at least in dairy, and my focus was on dairy as opposed to poultry and eggs, although the same principles apply. In the 1970s, when supply management was brought in, there was a lot of good reason to do it. Dairy farmers there were 145,000 approximately dairy farmers in Canada. There were lots of frustrations with price fluctuations. There were real concerns about, the survival of some of these farmers. And so the idea of supply management was a very good one, and it was very much to help the farmers. But fast forward to 2012, and we have fewer than 13,000 dairy farmers, so the number of farmers has dropped by 91%. And the economic distortions that are in play and the sheer economics of it just don't apply anymore. And so, having said that, it was an important thing at the beginning and good idea and all the best intentions. Now it does need to change, and I've highlighted a number of reasons for that. One is the sheer cost to the average Canadian family. I mean, the average Canadian family spends hundreds of dollars more. I don't mean hundreds of dollars. I mean hundreds of dollars more a year than they need to for dairy, poultry, and eggs. I mean, in Ontario here, we had a cheese smuggling ring was broken up.
Yes, I do remember that.
I know, it's not drugs, it's cheese.
Mm-hmm.
So the average Canadian family spends hundreds of dollars more than they need to. It's regressive. It hurts the lower income families the most, which are made up of, unfortunately, mostly single mother, and they tend to be single mother families. And the studies that have been done that show, halfway through a check cycle, how much less a big, huge thing of Coke costs than a liter of milk. So you can imagine what happens, right? And that's exactly what the studies have shown. So it's regressive, it hurts the lower income families the most, and it's basic nutrition, right? So one, there's that. The domestic distortions we have, non-supply managed farmers, which make up 14/15 of all of Canadian farmers, are actually non-supply managed. You would know that. Mm-hmm. Struggle with higher prices for land. They struggle with higher prices for equipment. There are all sorts of reasons that they struggle with it. But the other domestic distortion is that we have processors who, all well and good to satisfy the Canadian market because Canadian local prices are what they are, but all of these processors who want to compete internationally are setting up plants in the States or setting up plants in South America because they cannot compete internationally with Canadian milk prices. So we're exporting jobs. The trade implications are significant, and this actually ironically affects so many of those other farmers. So we know that our protection of supply management has been a thorn in the side of all of the trade negotiations, whether they be WTO, less so in the European trade negotiations because we know about the European subsidies. So my understanding, we're about to do a bit of a trade-off, beef for milk, but in all other trade negotiations, so the most worrisome example now is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's been made clear by the Australians and New Zealanders, the folks from Singapore, that all well and good to be at the table to engage in discussions, but we're not signing if Canada is still protecting supply management. So that's an issue, but it's not just because we like trade, it's because the Trans-Pacific Partnership is seen as an opening door to the huge, emerging, fast-growing Asian markets. And the irony here is that of the 14/15 of Canadian farmers that are not supply managed, who grow and produce pork, beef, grains, oilseeds, pulses, they actually would benefit from more trade. They would benefit from access to those big emerging Asian economies. And they won't if we harm those trade opportunities by continuing to insist on supply management. We use the Australian example as a way of dismantling supply management that really worked very well. But the way the Australians did it was they actually used the system to pay it out. So world market price was, I wish you could see me because I'm using my hands, but world market price is up, at one level, protected price, so the Canadian price is up high at one level, world price is down at a lower level. What the Australians did is they cut all protection off overnight. So in effect, the price was dropped to the world market level, but imposed an 11 cents a liter premium at retail per liter. And that amount of money, which meant that consumers were paying a little bit more than world market, but already significantly less than what they were paying for 8 years. And that established the fund that was used to provide the compensation and transition for the farmers. I mean, brilliantly, elegantly simple. So consumers right away paying less than they were, but for a period of 8 years, a little bit more than world market price. So it was win-win all over the place. It was a really interesting. I just thought it was really rather brilliant, and so I'm recommending we do something along those lines here.
Okay.